I never thought moving into a nice neighborhood like Oakwood Estates would lead to an all-out war with the most notorious HOA president in the county. But that's exactly what happened. My name is Daniel, and I'm a structural engineer. For 15 years, my entire world has revolved around building codes, permits, and regulations. It's my job. So, when I bought my beautiful craftsman-style home last spring, I knew there was a homeowners association, but I wasn't worried. I figured as long as I mowed my lawn and kept my trash cans hidden, I'd be fine. I was wrong. My mistake was underestimating Karen Wilcox. Karen, the HOA president, had crowned herself the absolute ruler of every driveway, mailbox, and blade of grass in our neighborhood. Armed with a rule book she interpreted however she pleased, she ran Oakwood Estates with an iron fist. My troubles began when I decided to install solar panels. Being an engineer, I followed every rule meticulously. I submitted my application to the HOA's architectural committee. I got all the necessary county permits. I hired a licensed company, and I even walked my neighbors through the energy-saving benefits. The committee reviewed my plans and gave me their formal, signed approval. The installation was scheduled. Everything was going perfectly until Karen returned from her 2-week Alaskan cruise. I was outside planting some drought-resistant shrubs when a silver SUV screeched to a halt right in front of my house. Karen stormed out, clutching a leather portfolio like it was a royal decree. Her face was flushed with that special kind of outrage I would soon learn was her default expression. "Excuse me," she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I don't recall approving any solar panels on this street. That kind of construction destroys property values and is an eyesore for the entire neighborhood." I stood up, brushing the dirt off my hands. "Hello, Karen. I'm Daniel. I submitted all the paperwork months ago, and the architectural committee approved everything. I have the signed documents right inside if you'd like to see them." Her eyes narrowed, looking me up and down like I was something she'd found on the bottom of her shoe. "I'm the president of this HOA," she said, her voice dripping with ice. "Nothing gets approved without my final sign-off. The committee might have reviewed it, but I have veto power over all exterior modifications." She said it with such authority that for a split second, I actually second-guessed myself, almost. Luckily for me, I'd read the HOA bylaws from cover to cover before ever submitting my application. "Actually," I replied calmly, "Section 4.3 states that the Architectural Committee has full authority to approve projects that comply with county regulations and HOA guidelines. The president only gets involved to review appeals or break a tie." I gave her a polite smile and held her gaze. Karen's mouth opened, and then it closed. She looked like a fish gasping for air. It was obvious she wasn't used to anyone challenging her, especially not by quoting her own rulebook back to her. "Well," she finally stammered, her voice shaking with rage, "I will be reviewing these documents personally. Expect a violation notice if anything is out of order." She spun around, stormed back to her SUV, and peeled away. 3 days later, a violation notice was taped to my front door. It claimed my solar panels violated the Neighborhood Aesthetic Harmony Clause, a completely made-up rule that didn't exist anywhere in the bylaws. The notice demanded I stop all plans immediately or face a $100 fine for every single day. Instead of getting mad, I got organized. I drafted an email to the entire HOA board, attaching the committee's approval letter, the relevant sections of the bylaws, and even the state laws that protect a homeowner's right to install solar panels. And then, the installation went ahead exactly as planned. For a couple of weeks, it was quiet, too quiet. Then one evening, I pulled into my driveway after a long day at work and my heart stopped. 3 police cars were parked outside my house, their lights flashing. An officer walked up to my car as I got out. "Sir, are you the homeowner?" he asked, his expression serious. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Is there a problem?" "We received a report of illegal construction," he said, and potential code violations, creating an immediate safety hazard to the neighborhood. Do you mind if we take a look around? I was stunned, but I kept my cool. Of course, officer. I have all the permits and approvals right inside. I'll gladly show you everything. As we walked toward my front door, I saw her, Karen, standing on her porch across the street, arms crossed, watching the whole scene with a smug look of satisfaction. The officers were professional. They inspected the panels, they reviewed every single one of my documents, and they asked a lot of questions. After about 45 minutes, the lead officer just shook his head. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to find out what happened next. Everything checks out. Sir, your permits are valid, and the installation meets all code requirements. Sorry for the disturbance. As the officers prepared to leave, I had to ask the question burning in my mind. May I ask who filed the report? The officer hesitated, then said, Karen Wilcox. She identified herself as the HOA president and claimed Judy failed multiple inspections and created a fire hazard. He glanced toward Karen's house. Between you and me, he added quietly, this isn't the first time we've been called out here over HOA disputes. Something about his tone made me pause. Has she filed official reports before? I asked. The officer replied carefully, I'm not at liberty to discuss specific cases, but I strongly recommend you keep all your documentation readily available. He handed me his card and left. The next morning, I went straight to City Hall to review public records. What I found stopped me cold. Karen hadn't filed just one report about my property, she'd filed 3. Each one escalated in severity. The most recent was the most disturbing of all. Attached were forged inspection reports, complete with fake county letterheads, falsely claiming my solar installation had failed multiple safety inspections and posed an immediate danger to neighboring homes. This wasn't HOA overreach anymore. This was fraud and filing false police reports. Instead of confronting Karen, I did the smarter thing. I scheduled a meeting with the police department's community liaison officer. I brought everything, my legitimate permits and approvals, copies of Karen's fabricated documents, and a detailed timeline showing exactly when each false report had been filed. The officer listened closely, his expression growing more and more serious. This is extremely serious, Mr. Coleman, he said when I finished. Filing false police reports is a criminal offense. Forging government documents elevates this to another level entirely. We'll be opening a formal investigation. Things moved faster than I expected. Less than 2 weeks later, I was called to the station to provide an official statement. The department had confirmed the documents Karen submitted were completely fabricated. They had enough evidence to move forward with criminal charges. The following Saturday morning, my neighborhood got a front row seat to justice. I was washing my car when a police cruiser pulled up in front of Karen's house. 2 officers approached her door, spoke with her briefly, and then, while neighbors watched from behind their blinds, Karen Wilcox was escorted to the patrol car, her hands secured behind her back in handcuffs. The charges were severe: 3 counts of filing false police reports and 1 count of forging government documents, aggravated by the fact that she used her position as HOA president to lend credibility to her false accusations. Karen was released on bail, but her downfall had only just begun. The next week, an emergency HOA meeting was called. Nearly every homeowner showed up. The room was thick with tension as the vice president explained the situation. Karen sat in the front row, her once impeccable appearance now visibly unraveling. When it came time to vote on her removal from the board, there was no hesitation. By a margin of 40 to 2-3, Karen Wilcox was removed, effective immediately. As the gavel struck, her face crumpled. She grabbed her designer handbag and that familiar leather portfolio and walked out of the community center without a word, the sharp echo of her heels cutting through the stunned silence. The legal consequences were even harsher. Karen learned she was facing potential jail time and thousands in fines. Her attorney negotiated a plea deal. She would plead guilty to 1 count of filing a false police report, pay over $8,000 in restitution, and court costs, complete 200 hours of community service, and remain on probation for 2 years. The judge did not mince words. "Mrs. Wilcox," he said sternly, "this court takes a very dim view of individuals who abuse the legal system and waste police resources for personal vendettas. Your actions showed a disturbing disregard for the law and for public safety." As the sentence was finalized, Corinne's composure finally shattered. Her face flushed deep red, then drained to a ghostly white. "But, Your Honor," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper, "I was only trying to protect our property values." The judge simply shook his head. Corinne Wilcox stood frozen, finally facing consequences that no HOA rulebook had ever prepared her for. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you'd like to share, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.